Good afternoon, all. Welcome to Inside the Text. You are joining me, Pastor Lydia, this afternoon. Please feel free to leave a comment or say hi if you are joining live, or if you would like to do so later when you are able to watch this at your convenience and at your leisure, that would be lovely. I would love to hear your thoughts and your reflections. We're diving a little bit today into the Gospel of Mark and Jesus's healing and miracle ministry, as well as Sabbath and what it means to rest and what it means to hold intention, a rigidity around how we understand or practice Sabbath, and how we can let some of that legalism go. And so, with that in mind, and understanding that rest is crucial to our faith lives and to our bodies and minds and whole beings as beloved children of God, made in the image of God, I invite you to take a moment to center yourself and breathe, ground yourself in the here and the now. Notice things that are happening around you, maybe, so you can be fully present in this moment right now. I can hear birds singing outside my window. I can hear coworkers going about doing their different ministries. Um, it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful time. Take a moment, notice what's happening around you, and then breathe. And release and let it out and be present. Again, we're going to be delving into the Gospel of Mark, starting with chapter 2, verse 23, and then entering into the beginning of chapter 3, and ending with chapter 3, verse 6. So, without further ado, here is our text to dive into. One Sabbath, he, Jesus, was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And he said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need of food? He entered the house of God when Abiathar was high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for any but the priests to eat, and he gave some to his companions. Then he said to them, 'The Sabbath was made for humankind, not humankind for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath.' Again he entered the synagogue, and a man who was there had a withered hand. They watched him to see whether he would cure him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, 'Come forward.' Then he said to them, 'Is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill?' But they were silent. He looked around at them with anger. He was grieved at their hardness of heart and said to the man, 'Stretch out your hand.' He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. The Pharisees went out immediately, conspired with the Herodians against him, how to destroy him. And we hear a few different things in this text. It begins with Jesus walking through some grain fields. He's accompanied by his disciples and clearly also some Pharisees, some religious scholars of the time. As they're walking through the grain fields, the disciples begin to pluck the heads off of wheat. And the Pharisees kind of try to call them out because it's the Sabbath. It's a day of rest. Now we remember Jesus and his disciples were Jewish, and so they practice adherence to Jewish law and Jewish tradition and Jewish religious beliefs, which honors the Sabbath as a day without work. And these Pharisees are seeing this plucking of these grains as work, as labor, and they're supposed to rest from labor. And so the Pharisees are like, well, wait, this isn't right. This isn't lawful. Now, it's really important to remember that when we hear lawful in Scripture, it's not legalism the way we think of laws in the country of the United States today. Lawful is more to do about relationship with each other and relationship with God than it is moralistically right or wrong. So we have to remember that. Law is a different context here in Scripture than it is how we often understand law to be. There's still obviously rigidity and strict adherence in some ways to it, the way that we often have rigidity and strict adherence to some laws and not others. And for example, speeding versus embezzling. We have a stricter adherence to how illegal it is to embezzle from people or companies versus a less strict adherence to if we drive 5 miles or 10 miles over the speed limit, which is technically illegal. So law is different. So that first we need to clarify. So they're not asking, is it like morally or punishably problematic as much as it is, hey, wait, this isn't how we practice our relationship with God and with each other. So why this isn't lawful in our relationship? This isn't right in our relationship with God and with each other to be doing this work. So the Pharisees are genuinely asking this because they're troubled by the actions of these followers of Jesus. And Jesus says, well, let's remember what David, our ancestor, did when they were hungry and his soldiers were hungry and in need of food. He went into the temple, which is like this holy, holy, holy place, and only the priests are allowed to go in there and eat that bread. And he brought that bread to his soldiers to eat because they were starving. And it was a time of great need. And so he's trying to loosen and reframe the understanding of need and structure and work on the Sabbath, as well as broaden the horizon and perspective of what the needs of the community are. If there's a need for food, people can't rest on the Sabbath or rest at all if they're in need of food or shelter, if they're hungry. We know what it's like when we get hungry. My favorite example is always, I have a young daughter. She's not even a year and a half. And when she is hungry, she lets us know. She's very hangry, hungry and angry, hangry. And she fusses and she cries and she protests and she throws little temper tantrums because she's hungry. She can't still herself. She can't be quiet. She can't rest because she's hungry. We all know what that's like. There is no Sabbath without having basic needs met. And Jesus is trying to get people to understand that. And then he also goes on to say that the Sabbath was made for us and not us for the Sabbath. And that sounds a little funny, but the Sabbath is a gift to us. And we are in such a hustle, 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 busy, 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 go, go, go culture that we don't have Sabbath. We don't honor Sabbath in the way of like understanding that it has been given to us as a gift. We're not made for the Sabbath to exist. The Sabbath is made so that we can rest. The Sabbath and rest doesn't need humankind to exist, but we need Sabbath to live faithfully in community, in creation, and with God. We need rest, and we need to honor that. And then Jesus moves into the temple, a sacred space in this time and still a sacred space for our Jewish siblings, and performs a miracle of healing. He heals this withered hand. And the Pharisees see it and they don't say anything because Jesus is kind of like, is it lawful to heal or harm? What's right or wrong on the Sabbath? To perpetuate harm or to fix harm and actually heal something or someone? And they don't say anything. And they leave after he heals this man's withered hand. And so that's also something really important for us to consider when we hold sometimes in tension our own rigidity and understanding of what is right and what is wrong and what is Sabbath and what is faithful and what God is calling us to do or how God is calling us to be present in this world. Is it harmful or is it helpful? Is it hurtful or is it healing? Is it perpetuating or is it liberating? And then we can move forward into a little bit more work and depth and understanding. Again, Sabbath is necessary for our relationships with all things, including ourselves and God in creation and all other people. And I want to take a few moments here. I will actually edit the comments or the description to include this book information in this video. But this book is called Sabbath, Finding Rest, Renewal, and Delight in Our Busy Lives, written by Wayne Muller. And there is a short chapter on legalism and the dreary Sabbath. And I want to take time to read this to you. I was going to try to summarize it, but I think it's just best if I read it because it is a reflection on you are not made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath is made for you, from the Gospel of John. So, here we go. On the seventh day, God rests. Jewish texts prohibit 39 specific acts during Sabbath, acts traditionally associated with the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. If God could rest in creating the universe, God's people could rest in the building of the sacred temple. Tasks such as sowing, plowing, reaping, threshing, and winnowing are prohibited, as are grinding, sifting, kneading, and baking, spinning and weaving, hunting and slaughtering, building, hammering, and transporting are among the prohibitions. But beyond the legalism is an idea that by saying no to making some things happen, deep permission arises for other things to happen. When we cease our daily labor, other things, love, friendship, prayer, touch, singing, rest, can be born in the space created by our rest. Walking with a friend, reciting a prayer, caring for children, sharing bread and wine with family and neighbors. Those are intimate graces that need precious time and attention. Over time, as with all ecclesiastical precepts, Sabbath laws became overly legalistic. The Jewish Sabbath could be so restrictive and morose that for some it became a day of lethargy and depression rather than sensuality and delight. Laughter, play, even walks in nature were at one point forbidden. Zalman Schachter Shalomi told me, lots of people will swear allegiance to the Sabbath and criticize those who do not keep all the Sabbath laws. But their inner experience is not one of spaciousness and delight. It is too easy to talk of prohibition. But the point is the space and time created to say yes to sacred spirituality, sensuality, sexuality, prayer, rest, song, delight. It is not about legalism and legislation, but about joy and the things that grow only in time. We need to remove the grimness from it. As a beginning, Reb Zalman suggests we begin the Sabbath simply by saying, today, I am going to pamper my soul. Early Christians celebrated the Sabbath on Sunday to commemorate the day of Jesus' resurrection. The Sunday Sabbath first received official recognition in 321 Common Era, when the Emperor Constantine, newly converted to Christianity, declared it a day of rest throughout the Roman Empire. Sadly, this inaugurated a long period of governmentally enforced Sabbath keeping, when church attendance became mandatory. Much later, when religious reforms swept through Europe in the 16th century, it brought renewed emphasis on the faithful away from the more sensual temptations of the day of rest. As church fever spread throughout the New World, American Protestantism increased the severity and duration of Sabbath obligations as further evidence of deeper piety. Small wonder, then, that so many of us chafe at the memory of such stringent Sabbath restrictions, and actually prefer to work rather than be forced to rest in such a dry and gloomy fashion. Sarah was raised by her Jewish grandparents. She remembers the Sabbath as a day on which she couldn't turn on any lights, see her friends, or go outside and play. On the Sabbath, she felt trapped in a dreary world that felt dark and punitive. David, raised in a strict Christian household, recalls Sundays as being similarly bleak. We were not allowed to do anything fun. No games, no card playing, not even baseball. All we could do was sit inside, usually with my grandparents, and eat and talk and just do nothing. Reb Zalman says the people who wrote such restrictive laws were undoubtedly people who completely missed the joy of Sabbath. The ancient Jewish Megillah reaches the Sabbath is given unto you, not you, unto the Sabbath. Jesus similarly insisted that man is not made for the Sabbath, but Sabbath made for man. These teachings clearly warn against the tendency toward legalism, which suffocates our joy and drains the spontaneity and passion out of this gratuitous day of delight. Among the many Sabbath practitioners who have shared their stories with me, one of the more popular Sabbath activities is being physically intimate. Indeed, the Talmud tractate on marriage contracts states that the righteous couple should make love every Friday night. One practitioner told me that it is traditional among some sects for love 4 or 5 times during the Sabbath. Hearing this, I respectfully inquired as to whether he and his wife did, in fact, faithfully keep this particular precept. No. But, he added with a twinkle, we hold a deep intention for the other 3. The God who made the Sabbath is not a cranky schoolmaster, always forbidding, coercing obedience, and watching sniveling subjects slinking about in a cowardly compliance. The Sabbath commandment comes from a kind, wise teacher who does not like to see us suffer. Let me make it easier for you, God says. Some things at first seem expedient or important or profitable, but in the end they will bring you suffering. If you work well all week and forget to rest, you will become brittle and hard and lose precious nourishment and joy. Forgetting the Sabbath is like forgetting to unwrap the most beautiful gift under the tree. If we forget to rest, we will work too hard and forget our more tender mercies. Forget those we love, forget our children and our natural wonder. God says, please don't. It is a waste of a tremendous gift I have given you. If you knew the value of your life, you would not waste a single breath. So I give you this commandment. Remember to rest. This is not a lifestyle suggestion, but a commandment. As important as not stealing, not murdering, and not lying. Remember to play and bless and make love and eat with those you love and take comfort, easy and long, in this gift of sacred rest. And so today I leave you with this understanding that the Sabbath was made for you, not you for the Sabbath. Sabbath was made for you, not you for the Sabbath. And remember it as a day of gratuitous delight. Thank you for joining me as we dive into miracles and healing and work and legalism and the Sabbath. I look forward to seeing you all this coming Sunday, and I hope you can join us. Have a great day, and I will see you later. Bye.